Welcome back, everybody. This is the Resistance Broadcast. I'm John. How you guys doing today? This is our Monday show, our news show. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff on how Star Wars movies are made and really get into the ridiculousness of what it's like to do some blue-collar style making of movies and try to poke a little fun at conspiracies that are made about them, like, you know, recording under a blanket or something. I don't know. But anyway, like I said, I'm John. James and Lacey are here with me.
Why does your audio sound so good?
So the audio listeners don't know that I was just recording that whole intro there under a blanket, and we'll explain why.
But that's how it's done.
We'll explain why in a little bit, but I bet I just sounded so good.
You actually did, because there was no echo.
Yeah.
Room
but anyway, so I don't know. Are you guys? How you guys doing? What's going on? James, what's the deal? What's the deal with you? Was that a weird intro for you? Did you feel odd about that whole situation?
Nope, not one bit.
Excellent. Lacey, you thought that was a good idea, right?
Yeah, I was the one that said yes, do it.
Okay.
Well, seriously, people don't realize when I joined this podcast, I used to record in a closet.
Yep. You did, with no lights. That was before we were full video, too.
Yeah.
Before we get going, though, I want to send a special thank you. Usually I do this at the end of the show, and I know some of you tune out, and it's a big mistake, because sometimes we have really funny banter at the end of the show, and we slip in things that you may need to know about the future. But anyway, typically I thank our Patreon generals at the end of the show, but I want to start this show off today with a special thank you to them. So I want to shout out our Patreon generals: Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Neil Lowry, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese. I love how the two Beard brothers are right next to each other. General Beard and General Graybeard. Seth Keim, Micah Harrison, Tampa Movie Guy, which, I'm just saying it, Gary. You're Gary, and you're a Tampa Bay Rays fan. And I'm sorry that you are, because the Yankees are winning the World Series. Michael Gaines and Val Trichkov. Generals, you're the best. Thank you so much for all your support on Patreon. Wanted to give you a shout at the top of the episode this week, just to let you know how much you guys mean to us. So thank you for that. All right, guys. So it's the news show. It's the Resistance Report. And James is going to take us there right now.
It's the Resistance.
What's a song where they go, take you there?
I'll take you there.
No, not that one.
Oh.
I don't know what I'm thinking of. I'll take you there. Something. Nah, all right. Hey, did you guys listen to that phone call the other day?
No, but I just followed all the stuff online about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I do have to say something about that phone call real quick. Did you like the first of all, it sounds like bad AM radio for one thing. Like
it's like a webinar.
Yeah. And the music before it is just such odd choices. I don't know who's in charge of that, but it doesn't, like, you wouldn't expect a Disney shareholders Q1 financial call to be like preceded by, like, I don't know, pick your flavor of the month, Ariana Grande, or like something like way off color for Disney.
Well, first of all, we're talking about the Disney Q1's earning call. That was a public thing that people could pop in and ask questions and stuff like that. But they report all their stuff, and they talk about profit and loss and all this. There's a little bit of Star Wars news. Everybody thinks there's going to be some, at least, because they gotta recognize one of their biggest properties. But what was that? Was that music not? I didn't know who it was, but I just assumed it was like Radio Disney. Like it was just like one of their artists.
It definitely is like, yeah, it's definitely one of their artists.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was
strange. So I was like, oh, this is just like them playing Disney music, but it's a little bit more like regular radio than it was like playing Disney songs like Hercules, Go the Distance or something, you know? Mm-hmm. So I was okay with it. But like I was saying before, we had speculated that there probably wasn't going to be a lot of information. John can kind of attest to, I think we actually got a little bit more than we thought we were going to get. Not that it was a lot, But to me, I felt like him saying twice that Mando's returning. The Mandalorian was returning in October. He said it twice. And he even went into how their focus was going to be on television and stuff like that. So there was a lot that was, I don't want to say a lot, but I want to say a lot more than we thought. John, go into full details about what you anticipated and what we actually received.
So I got a frog in my throat. Jeez. I didn't think we were going to get a lot. I know, like we said last week on the show, we always try to look for patterns, and quarter one the previous year, he just talked about video game licensing or something like that and skipped right over. And that was a huge year for Star Wars, and he still didn't talk about much. So going in, didn't expect much. I think this time a lot of people were also kind of reserved, because remember last year, people thought he was going to give the title for episode 9 and he was going to release all this information. And now people are like, we learned our lesson. So good for you, fans. Just like us, learning our lessons and not expecting too much. That's a good thing. Him saying Mando's coming out in October surprised me. I thought that was going to be a thing that's just going to be like our new tradition right before Thanksgiving. Here's Mandalorian. So that was cool to hear, because it's a month earlier than we thought, which means we're going to bring back the Mando fan show a month earlier than we thought, which is going to be fun. And then he alluded to that they're considering spinoffs, which I thought was an interesting thing for him to say for other characters of The Mandalorian and stuff like that. He mentioned Cassian Andor show, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and that the focus is going to be on television for the next few years. But, a lot of people ran with that. But I don't think that was new. I think he's been saying that for a while now, that once after episode 9, they're going to be focusing on Disney Plus content for Star Wars and using that word, which is taboo, hiatus. But we've known the next Star Wars movie's been scheduled for 2022, so this isn't anything shattering the world here. And, to credit for people who are, anti-Star Wars fans out there, they didn't even have much to run with this either, because they're like, they did say they're not getting another movie until 2022, but looks like the focus is on TV. Spinoffs, I don't know what they're considering for spinoffs. If they start, we can talk about that later, I guess. But
let's pop over to Lacey. What's your first thoughts on the spinoffs?
That they're gonna do a Cara Dune show. I think that's the first thing that they could do. That's an easy spinoff that people would really, really love. I think she's one of the characters that came out of the series being a fan favorite. I think Gina killed it. I think Gina would love to carry a show on her own, and there's so much story there that they kind of touched on a little bit of her being from Alderaan and her being, a shock trooper, all this other stuff that you could really get into and be like in that time period of the original trilogy without getting too into Luke, Leia, and Han. Like, it's another way to get back into it for those older fans and fans that really love the original trilogy without touching what they love so much. Which is, I think, one of the reasons why The Mandalorian was such a success outside of, obviously, Baby Yoda, which Bob Iger said it was a cultural phenomenon. I completely agree. Every single human being on this planet knows who Baby Yoda is at this point. So, I think Cara's the first choice. I know people were like, oh, Moff Gideon. I was like, no, why would they give him his own show? He's the villain of Mandalorian. Like, we need him there. But, we've seen a lot of how did they become the villain stuff, so that could be an option as well. Did you guys have different preferences?
So two little things. If I was going to do a Cara Dune show, I would do Greef and Cara together.
That might be cool. Yeah.
I think at the end of season 1, they seemed like they separated so that Mandalorian, could go on his own thing and they could continue the show with him. But where the other two's characters left off as like, they're friends now. They're going to continue to work together. And so it seemed more like a kind of what we thought we were going to get with The Mandalorian in the first place. Greef gives her a mission. Maybe she goes and does some stuff and kind of then comes back. The other thing I would say to add to that, though, is that they're probably considering spinoffs of things based on season 2. And we're going, well, the Cara Dune show's got to be it. But it's like, we have no clue what characters, and they're totally aware of them. They're like, that's going to be a hit. This is a way cooler character than Grief and Cara adventures, you know? So,
right. People also hinted at
wait.
like Fennec Shand was one that people were thinking because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is over. And
so she, in my opinion, she was blown out of proportion going into the show.
It's because she's Ming-Na. That's what it was.
I guess so, but I remember talking about her as if she was like BB-9E or something, and we're all like, "Oh man, this droid's gonna be crazy." And then
James,
it's like,
I mean, look at fans of Boba Fett.
That's different though.
No, it's not. Boba Fett was on screen for like 3 minutes in the original trilogy. She may have had more screen time than Boba Fett. You know what I mean?
They could do a heist cruise show, like
what
with
I'm saying
Bill
is
Burr
like
and other
Star
people.
Wars fans like latch onto a character, even a small character, and they're like, that one's mine because no one else liked. So and it becomes like a cult thing. And like I agree with Lacey, Ming-Na is very popular, but
it's like the Spice Girls. Everybody has their favorite.
Exact posh. It's always posh is always the answer.
Bossk Spice.
Bossk Spice. So we did run a poll about this, and I tried to do it where I deflected getting pummeled with Baby Yoda gifts if we made him an option. So I said, assuming they don't make a series based on Baby Yoda, which would be like the dumbest cash grab of all time.
Yeah.
But it's him like learning how to make stew in a hut or something.
It's like Blue's Clues or something.
Yeah. I said, who out of existing characters in The Mandalorian would you want to see a spinoff made out of? And Cara Dune, obviously, like Lacey said, took the cake at 60%, followed by Moff Gideon at 26%. And then Fennec Shand, 8%. Grief Karga, only 5%. So not too many Carl Weathers fans out there. But with over 3,000 votes. So thanks to everybody for participating in that. It took off pretty well. And you're right, though, James. It could be something that they're looking at for a season 2 if they start incorporating more characters or new characters and stuff. And you know what's funny about series, though? For some reason, my brain instinctually always wants to go prequel when someone says spinoff, because that's what we usually do with Star Wars. Obi-Wan, prequel. Cassian, prequel. The prequels, prequel. It's like, so we're never going like lateral.
Obi-Wan's a sequel, though, in my head.
Yeah, but it's also a prequel because we know his fate in a way. You know, we know the end of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So
I guess it's just because I'm thinking of Ewan McGregor picking up where he left off. But.
Yeah, because when Lacey said, Cara Dune, it's a no-brainer, and it is. My brain goes, oh, younger Cara Dune and how she was this and did that, and she was on Alderaan. But it could be she leaves Mando and just does some stuff like now.
That's exactly. I didn't at all think what you were saying. I was like, it's exactly this point forward.
Yeah. Right. That would be interesting. But yeah, who knows? But I don't know. I didn't expect him to say this much about it. He could also just be saying this to grandstand to shareholders, saying like, yeah, we're considering all these different Star Wars series and we have a lot in the pipeline, because the truth of the matter is they don't know what they're doing for movies right now. As far as I was told. So,
well, don't forget too that it was Alan Horn, I think, that said they were considering that since The Mandalorian was so popular, it may lead to a film.
Yeah.
So I thought when he started that sentence, he's like, well, we're doing these shows and then we're doing Mandalorian season 2, which it could eventually lead to, of course. And I was like, say you're leading to the potential of a film. We've already heard this news. And he said more spin-off series with some of the characters. And I said, oh, that's a twist. Right. But it's not on the plate. They've publicly said we've kicked around the idea of The Mandalorian leading up to a feature. So
you ever think Alan and Bob get together and they're like afterwards, they're like, dude, why'd you say that? Like, we never talked about a spin-off movie.
Alan and Bob are like Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal. They're like sitting in a meeting and they're like, oh yes, we'll figure out if Spider-Man is in the Marvel universe or not. Like, well, yeah.
What if that's his movie? What if they're starting to develop a Mando, like a movie, and he's the one directing it? Who knows? But
could be. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention real quick about this story is the hiatus thing, because I think you're exactly right, John. when somebody says the word hiatus, I think 9 times out of 10, the average person associates that word with a band went on hiatus, which means they broke up and they're done. They're not working on anything else.
Yeah.
They separated. There's no future projects in the works right now for the foreseeable future. And so I think where the negativity came out of that is him saying the word hiatus, and people go, well, that just doesn't, that means they're not even working on movies, or they're not even thinking about movies. And it's like, no, we're just taking a break from releasing the movies every single year. But it's not that we don't still have an album, quote unquote, planned for 2022. It's still in the works, right? We're still doing that. So I want to clarify that because I saw a little bit of that stuff. Lacey, anything else you want to add about the earnings call?
No, I just love that a bunch of people that aren't shareholders always listen to these phone calls. And Bob's like, hello, everyone, knowing that there's a ton of random people listening to this phone call. Like, you have to know as Bob, you're like, oh, a bunch of people that are not supposed to be on this call are on this call. And there's something really weird about that, right? That you get to listen in, you like feel like kind of cool. You're like, oh, I'm on a Disney call.
Yeah.
It could also
be
be
on the call.
It could also be an advert in its own way for potential like shareholders. What if someone's like, I was thinking about buying Disney stock. Let me check in on their quarter one and see if I want to buy a share for $140.
Yeah, I've listened in on Apple does these too.
When is TRB gonna? Let's buy some shares so we can say we officially are like shareholders.
My favorite, I'm so glad though on these calls they don't do the stereotypical corporate America things. Like, we're just gonna wait a couple minutes till everyone comes onto the call. Can everyone hear me? If you're making noise, can you please put yourself on mute?
You know, I'm not positive that there were basically 3 different presentations. Like, you know, this person handed it off to this person, and then at the end, when they were all through with their spiels, then they did the questions. I'm not uncertain that they weren't handed the piece of paper. They read and recorded the piece of paper and then played it back over the phone, and then when it got to questions, then they were just there ready to answer questions.
I don't think so, but I do agree with that they probably read something off a piece of paper.
Oh,
I don't
100%.
think they pre-recorded it though because of the question answer thing. If there was no question answer, I would totally be on it. Like, I would be on that. Like, yeah, they totally recorded this.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, you get on the call, you push play, like it does its thing, and then like Bob comes into the room and they're like, okay, yeah, it's playing the thing right now. We need you to start answering questions here in 45 seconds.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I
that
don't
just
know.
seems like
that
more work.
Because then you don't
needed.
you don't fumble or lose your place when you're reading the paper.
I kind of agree with that. Like, what if he's like trying to? I know he didn't talk about Project Luminous, which James you brought up. He's like, he probably has no idea what that is.
No idea. No
imagine
clue.
He was like, and then our great Disney Lucasfilm Press is creating this thing called Project Luminous, and
he's like Project Looney Tunes.
Right. Oh, jeez, Bob.
But anyway, yeah, that's besides the point. And that's conspiracy theory too. Like, how do you think they're doing it? I bet he's a robot.
Theory, how they're doing corporate calls.
Bob Iger's not a real person. Bob Iger's a deep fake. He's not even a real person.
Oh, he's real. I've seen him.
So have I.
I have not. Okay. All right. So last week we actually got a lot of cool new things having to do with the effects that were in The Rise of Skywalker. We got a specific piece from Vanity Fair that was about the visual effects, and then a whole bunch of other outlets covered things that had to do with the sound effects within the movie. I just wanted to kind of talk about these things that we got and discuss a little bit about how we thought they were kind of revealing, behind the curtain. Before we get into the sound effects stuff, let's start off with the visual effects. Lacey, did you watch this video or did you read the article?
I did both. I prepared.
Yeah.
No. I watched the video when they posted it, when Anthony Bresnikan posted the clip of it, and then I went and watched it inside the article for Vanity Fair. It's super cool. This stuff is always super cool. When I did the exhibit for Solo: A Star Wars Story, ILM did a special reel for us that showed how they did the visual effects for that movie. So like these kind of things are really cool to see how it all comes together. It's like my favorite thing. I love behind the scenes. You guys know this. It amazes me. I knew that there was a lot of visual effects in this movie, but I didn't realize how much of it was visual effects. And that might sound dumb, but I feel like I didn't realize, because JJ's a big practical effects guy. So they showed all these important moments and you're like, wow, that all they did was, add more dust, but it makes it that much better. But the crazy part is they added things that made the scenes better that you didn't think were CG, which is always the best, right? So like the Leia stuff, it's CG. But when Rey and Kylo were fighting, they took all the real water out and put fake water in to make the scene work. Like that to me is crazy because they were like, well, cannons don't shoot water the way that coming up off a pier works. And you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So they they had them drenched for 6 days and then they ended up removing all the water and putting fake water in.
Yeah, it's insane.
The other thing that was crazy, and I feel like, James, you kind of feel for this one too, is all the ships that they had. They had over 16,000 ships and it took 8.4 million hours to render. Which James and I know from rendering videos. It is the biggest pain to wait for a video to render and export and then upload. 8.4, that is insane, which means they probably use like render farms and stuff. But yeah, no, the coolest thing for me was the wire shot with Rey.
Is that what the article said? 8.4 million hours? How do they even get that calculation? Because 8.4 million hours is years.
That's what's on the...
I wonder if it's one of those things where it's like the space shuttle uses 36 horsepower and it's like a calculation based on what regular render time is.
Oh, it's processor time. It's not like legit time. It's like in light speed, whatever, parsecs. It's like talking to parsecs. So it's like, oh, it took this many hours. But I mean, still, that's crazy.
Yeah.
For 16,000 ships. So good luck identifying all of them.
I tried to stop the video and look and see if...
When I saw the shot that showed like the backs of the ships too, I'm like,
yeah,
not a lot of things blow my mind. That blew my mind. I was like, this wasn't just some kind of like matte painting or like we're
right.
Just
we made jokes about copy paste, like copy paste. Like
it's they showing all the engines and all the afterburners and all the stuff on all these ships. Like it was like it was a real 360-degree filming of all these ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's insanity.
The coolest thing that I thought was the wire work they did with Rey's stunt double. Because I knew someone had done it, but you never know like how much of the shot is actual practical. Like they lifted her up off the ground. Like she went up there and then landed like in that superhero drop, which Deadpool says is hard on the knees. So
which is weird because we all know from the Han Jabba scene in the special edition, they could just pick her up and move her.
Yeah. That shot is
like,
really
why
saying, like,
bother
that
to
shot,
get a harness.
Right, but that shot, I knew part of it was obviously CG because of the ship, but I mean, unless the ship's real, who knows? I'm just joking. But that shot alone, you don't know like how high, like you said, she's jumping. No, they had her on a wire and they like pulled her up. She went up.
You have no idea how high I can fly.
I am terrified of heights, and I just saw that and was like, huh.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think Babu Frick was cool. I couldn't believe how many hands there were behind him, making him go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's cool. This stuff's awesome.
These videos are funny because there's a very good purpose for them. They're highlighting how much work actually goes into these, reconstructions of these scenes and stuff like that. And it's funny because they go, look, it's not just a button press, to get this. We have to add this and this and this. But it's funny because it also kind of makes it look like it's easy because they're like, look, you just add water, put some dust in there, replace the sky, no big deal. And it counterbalances how difficult it is. They're trying to highlight that, but it also makes it look like this stuff is so easy. Look, we throw a visor on Rey, put some dirt on her face, no big deal. And it's like, that's that's hours and hours and thousands of dollars that go to these people that spend weeks and weeks and weeks just to do like a 10-second clip. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And they're like, yeah, just see what we added. Consider us for Oscar nomination. You know, that's all that it is. John, anything stick out? Sorry.
Oh,
no, go ahead, Lacey.
I was just going to add that the other thing away from visual effects really quick, because I brought it up, was with the Rey shot. Not many people know this outside of filmmaking or photography. That time of day that they shot that shot at, they have like maybe 45 minutes to get that shot. It's called magic hour or golden hour. It's when the light hits perfectly horizontal on the landscape and makes everything really gold and beautiful and wonderful. Like, you have 45 minutes to do it. So I can only imagine how nuts that was when they were filming that, or how many days it took to get.
Yeah.
Sorry, fun fact.
No, I mean, it's in, like you were just saying about the water stuff, like the fact that they quantified the amount of fake gallons of water that they put in, like,
right?
So yeah, we rendered 140 million gallons of water and stuff. And I'm like, that's just crazy. And the fact that they Photoshop out real water to add fake water is just like,
that's not good. Nuts, not good enough. Bring in the fake.
No, the Leia thing, very interesting, because back in June, we were tipped off from a very wonderful source who had kind of told us how they were going to be creating Leia. So we had an article, and I included it in our version of this article in Star Wars Newsnet to reflect back to, of how they made Leia with a stand-in, like an older person who, like Carrie Fisher's age, as a stand-in, and then they were able to render her environment behind her, change her outfit tones, her hair, and all this stuff, and then import Carrie's facial expressions and that sort of thing onto that. And then, I mean, so that's amazing in and of itself, let alone all this other stuff we're talking about. They brought Carrie Fisher back to life, and I know we're all watching it knowing that Carrie Fisher had died, but I bet if someone didn't know that she had passed and they watched this movie, they wouldn't have said, "Oh, that's weird." They would have been like, "Oh, okay, there's that woman and she's a part of this movie." Right. So I find that just a remarkable achievement that they were able to pull that off, and it makes me wonder if they should go back and fix Rogue One, because I still think that looks really weird. The Leia thing.
I think she looks better in Rogue One than she does in Rise of Skywalker.
That's literally insane.
No, the part where she is in the woods with Luke are all together, James.
I mean, I haven't seen the movie that many times, but even when I'm watching the clip of the visual breakdown and stuff, I can see, just my brain knows that this is the segment that is her, and how they've added it over the same camera pans and stuff. And I don't know, my brain pops it out. I still don't get why people have problems with the one in Rogue One, because to me, it's literal perfection. I cannot see any issue with it at all.
It's awful.
People talk up Tarkin, and I'm like, no, I can tell that that's Uncanny Valley. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I can't see any problems at all with the Leia.
It's horrible. Just terrible.
I mean, they're both wonderful feats of visual effects.
That is absolutely ridiculous. You're like, it's horrible. It's terrible. They need to fix it. Go back and fix it. That's ridiculous.
They should fix it.
Can you do the voice for John at least? It's horrible. Take it back.
He's actually mad at me right now, though. This is me making fun of his GPS.
Honestly, it's not that bad.
It's bad, okay?
Okay, it's bad would be like the first Sonic the Hedgehog. That's bad.
Leia is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Leia in Rogue One is not bad.
Yes. She's the first Yoda puppet from episode 1 bad.
Oh my.
Okay? And I know a lot of people agree with me.
No one agrees with you. You're
that-
alone like Luke.
That statement is
Octo.
absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, I cannot even understand you saying that.
It looks like we have our next Star Wars war, so we'll leave it at that.
So James, what did you think of the visual
You know,
effects?
you're not going to.
No, I have one more thing to say about the visual effects, and it had to do with the Billy Lord thing, because
It's been revoked. Your thoughts have been revoked from this conversation.
that's fine. I'll just keep talking, and then that'll be that. But
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
The Billy Lord thing I thought was beautiful. I thought it was awesome. The fact that she wanted to, step up and play Leia in a sense, being a stand-in for her mom. And that's the one time you see Leia fighting with a lightsaber, and it's Billy Lord doing it for her mom. Even though they put obviously Leia's the dailies from Leia over her face, and it's not Billy Lord's face there anymore. The fact that you know that she's there in the suit and she filmed that, knowing she's doing that as a tribute to her mother, I think is very powerful. And it's just one of those like awesome moments that we'll always be able to know happened. And I love that kind of stuff. And they were able to just go the extra mile to think about doing that, and that she wanted to do it. They didn't force her to do it. I know people are like going around saying they forced her to do it and stuff. It's just lunacy. I just think that's such a great moment, and I'm glad they did it that way.
James?
Yeah, it's cool too, because you see it in that visual effects breakdown. Like, we had heard that, but I don't know. I could be wrong, but if there was anything that like directly reported that as fact, did she say that ever?
No, she didn't say she stood in. I think she mentioned it was magical. She didn't say she stood in for her mom.
Yeah, I just kind of got this thing that it was kind of like a rumored thing. Like, we knew it, but it was not really like you could point to it anywhere as fact. But then you watch this video and it's like there's things swiping across. And I did it on Twitter. I was like, I think they showed her face. They also showed the guy who played Luke's, as well.
Right.
But like, you can pause
Sebastian
this for
Stan.
a quick second and you're like, there she is. That's Billy Lord confirmed, like in this outfit, 100%. Unless they went in and added her face.
Yeah.
No, but all that stuff, I thought that was all really good. I liked the video. Is it weird that the music stuck out to me? I don't know.
The music's great.
Yeah, they always nail it with that.
Good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this section on the effects, I want to talk a little bit about the sound effects, though, because we got a couple different articles, including one from ABC News and our friend Clayton Sandell, who broke down a couple things that we'd been hearing, and he reported on those. So anything stick out to you guys specifically about the sound that goes into these movies, not just the visuals? Lacey?
First of all, let me tell you, there were a lot of people online being angry or throwing around conspiracy theories about what it meant that Adam Driver recorded lines in a closet. I'm going to tell you right now, it is a known thing to record in a closet. That's what most people do at home studios. I myself have a home studio in a closet because it's controlled, it's small, you can pad it with either clothes or blankets or sheets or whatever. I mean, Clayton himself put up a photo of him in Hong Kong where he had a blanket over a chair to do his voiceover work. It's a known thing. Ewan McGregor did his lines late in the process. So that is normal. So stop making it a thing that this movie was like off the rails. They're throwing Adam Driver in a closet. These guys in both these articles that we read about the sound stuff, including Clayton's and the one from the Hollywood Reporter, had Matthew Wood and team going around recording these lines with actors on their schedules. So Ewan McGregor did it under a blanket. Like, they filmed all over the world or recorded all over the world because of that. That aside.
Lacey, what did they change of the plot in Adam Driver's closet?
That aside, I think that one of the coolest things was how they did the stuff with Leia. Matthew Wood had mentioned that they took a bunch of lines from The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and then kind of with the help of their dialogue department and other people. They like worked together the lines to make sense. So I can only imagine the work that took, because they probably had to write out all the dialogue that they had and then piece it all together to then put it into the script to make it work, because you have to kind of build around Leia's lines, I would imagine. The other thing I thought was super cool was Babu Frick, where Matthew Wood talks about how Shirley Henderson, who's Moaning Myrtle in Harry Potter, played Babu Frick. She learned how to puppeteer, which we see in the visual effects reel, to play Babu Frick, which I love that someone takes that extra mile to become the character. And so when you see the mouth moving and animating, that's her doing it so that her mouth matched the work that she was doing. And Matthew Wood said that they recorded those live on set and then played them back later, which is really cool in post. Other than that, I mean, they used different sounds, like crows slow down for the Han-Hans, and it's kind of crazy what they do.
You said like a little bit of hippo in there or something like that, right? What was it?
Yeah. It's like, it's so funny when they talk about how they just layer and layer and layer sounds for certain things. Like, it's like a little bit of this. It's like, you know, they're on the cooking channel and they're throwing in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then you get the sound at the end. But again, you can tell by the way I'm talking about this, I love this stuff. How they break down how things are made and how things become what we see later in the movie. But I can't stress enough that stuff happens late in the game. Back to the Future almost didn't get finished. So it's not weird that these things are happening in closets or under blankets or late in the game. That's normal. So don't worry.
You know, at my job, I do video and audio and stuff like that. And this story was interesting because just like a few days before, like no longer than 7 days before the article came out, I got this big black curtain that we use for something else, and I put it on the wall and like wrapped it around a corner to build like a tunnel. And then I ran my microphone into that cloth tunnel to deaden all reflections in every direction. And I just go in there and it's dark, but you can read off of a paper, and I record my lines in this like blanket that's hanging from the ceiling that's wrapped all around me. And then this article comes out, and it's funny because people are like, that's weird. And I'm like, it's actually like how I do it. Like
in my closet
on a
is
regular basis.
Yeah. Is 4 curtain rods around the roof of the room, or not roof, the ceiling of the room. And each curtain rod has a different black, like thermal curtain on it. That's literally what it is. It just deadens the sound.
John, what of the sound effects stuff popped out to you? Was it the George?
I mean, the George is cool, I guess. It's like the new Wilhelm scream or whatever. I don't know where it is or if anyone pinpointed it out. They're kind of keeping it a secret as far as I understand it.
I don't think anybody knows right now.
Stormtrooper Pisana. I guarantee that's what it is. When he gets hit.
I literally just said, I don't think anybody knows right now.
I guarantee that's what it is. I would put money on it. I feel so strongly about this. In The Rise of Skywalker, they're in the desert. The last stormtrooper that has a jetpack that's coming after them.
Yeah.
They shoot him, and he does this ridiculous scream and then hits the cliff. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, that is so out of place. That is so over the top. But if that's George, that's hilarious.
I don't think I thought that was a scream too when I first saw it, but in subsequent viewings, I think it's his thing failing. It's not an audible scream.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think it's his jetpack failing.
Is it something that would be believably also in The Last Jedi, and that's something George Lucas would have recorded as a scream?
It's like a really
that's what it is, yeah.
And then he hits the cliff.
I'm sure it'll come out eventually, or someone will figure it out, and we'll find out.
Probably. But I remember they said, the article was that they, a while ago, that they didn't use the Wilhelm scream in The Last Jedi, and everybody was like, well, it's because we kind of have this new one that we've secretly been using. And I feel like they even said they used it in Rogue One, too.
Maybe.
But
I think that's so funny that they got George to do that. They were like, hey, man.
No.
It wasn't an old scream of him from filming old movies, like offset, like on behind the scenes. Like
got it.
I don't even think it was a Star Wars movie, right?
No, I don't think it was either. I don't know if it was.
That's still hilarious.
Indie or no. I think it might have been even American Graffiti. It might have been like really old.
I think it was an early one.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's cool. They said they have 2,000 new sound effects for just this, for The Rise of Skywalker, which is crazy to me. And it's just like all that these guys are doing is a tribute to like Ben Burtt, the guy who invented every Star Wars sound effect. Like you can't talk about Star Wars sound effects without that guy. Mm-hmm. He is Star Wars sound, just like John Williams is Star Wars music. So, but he never gets talked about. But the other thing, how they came up with the Death Star ruins sound by accident in a way where they were doing explosions and stuff, and the two guys, Matthew Wood and what's the other guy's name, David Accord, had to like take shelter in this like old metal barn and stuff, and the winds were whipping so far that they were creating like push fires. So like, go in here for safety until the winds die down, and the winds slapping against the metal and stuff. They're like, oh my God. They're like, dude, that sounds so cool. Like that could be, let's capture that. And they wound up using it for the winds going through the ruins of the Death Star. So that is an organic sound from that experience of those guys just taking shelter from wind fires, which I think that is pretty awesome. And it makes you realize how like organic and blue collar at times this type of industry can be. We're always talking about, oh, it's Disney and it's big Hollywood and it's, these actors and they're all rich and blah, blah, blah. But like these guys are there with microphones in these, borderline dangerous environments to capture these things. And sometimes they just come across a sound that they weren't even expecting to get. And, to your point, Lacey, about, they always do this stuff all the time under blankets and in closets and stuff. It's like, you watch all the old documentaries, and I love hearing old like Mark Hamill interviews where he really gets into the silliness of some of the ways they filmed some things for old Star Wars movies. Like he said, the big moment where Obi-Wan reveals himself to Luke as a ghost in Empire Strikes Back was filmed literally 3 feet outside of their hotel door in Norway. Like it wasn't in some magical location. They literally opened the hotel door. There's 20 feet of snow, and they're like, go lay over there and we're going to film this shot. Or like the little girl who plays Rey in the famous Scream, the No, Come Back. It was on the roof of Bad Robot in California. Like they do these types of things in all different types of places that may be convenient or time saving. And of course, everyone's going to take every one of those moments and run with it as though it is some kind of conspiracy or helps fit their belief that something wasn't right, or, and that sort of thing. And people just really sometimes need to sit back and say, that's just something that happened, and try to simplify it as much as possible instead of letting your brain run crazy with it. I know we all like to, our first instincts are to speculate and create theories, and we do that on the podcast about Star Wars projects and stuff, but usually the direct line is the easiest path to the truth. And I would just advise people out there to always do a little more and try to find out a little more truth before you start tweeting and running and running articles and running blogs and starting to spread rumors about stuff, because you're not doing any good by just running wild with all these chaos theories and stuff like that. Do a little more research. Look, you can find answers, and usually you will.
It literally happens all the time.
How did it get to this?
I can't stress enough like that films always have, setbacks and production issues, and these type of scenarios where they're going to shoot a line with Adam or anybody could be planned. It could not be planned. It doesn't matter. The end product is what matters, not how they necessarily got there. I don't know. Yeah. It's just people are crazy.
Also, I wouldn't even consider it a setback. I mean, it's like planned that they're going to have to redo lines, and someone's going to get the call, and they're going to say, hey, we need you to get some lines from Adam. And he's going to go, okay. So then he calls up Adam, and he's like, hey, man, what works best for you? Oh, I could just come over to your house, your place. We can get it there,
Yeah.
And then we'll go.
I didn't mean it like it was a setback. I'm just saying like where they work around actors' schedules. So
what I'm clarifying is it wasn't because they were like, oh, we're over budget. Let's pay somebody $1,000 to go film Adam, and since they don't have any money, they'll just do it. They'll have to do it in his closet or something. Like it was a mistake or poor planning or something.
Sure,
that's not the case at all. Like,
Adam Driver's like, I'm on Broadway doing this run. Like I can't come out. Like, and don't worry, we'll come to you. And
we'll just get it in. We'll just get it in like the alley or something. I have a booth.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Okay, well, real quick to end the Resistance report, I want to talk a little bit about comics because they're part of canon, right? We got to pay attention to them at least every once in a while. And I figured that Darth Vader #1 might be a good starting point, or at least let's take a little dive here. Now, to be fair, if you have not read Darth Vader #1 and you are looking forward to it, you don't want any spoilers, we're going to talk probably about comic books for the next 5 to 10 minutes. So maybe skip ahead a little bit until you hear Lacey talking about the Scoundrels rundown. But let's get to it real quick. Did you guys check out the comic? Lacey, you're wearing red, and that's the color of his lightsaber. So what'd you think?
I actually want to hear what John thinks of the comics first.
Because the time I throw to Lacey, she throws to John.
Only because I don't really have any hard feelings about these comics. I don't know. I haven't been able to really get into the Star Wars comics lately. I've just been overwhelmed with everything else that's coming out. So
sure, yeah.
I know what happens, but I'm interested to see what John thinks because I don't know. I feel like he's going to have a particular thought, and I wonder if I agree with him. So
John, do you have a particular thought?
I do, but people aren't going to like it. But
okay.
Is it that the comics don't matter?
A little bit. Well, hear me out. So this comic, and I'll just say it. Padme appears to Vader as though she is alive when he goes on this search for, how Luke was hidden from him and how he was raised, and it hindered his growth, and he could have been way more powerful. So he goes to Tatooine looking for Beru and Owen, and they're dead, and we don't know where their bodies are. But then he sees the graves, and he gets all mopey Vader again. Which, comics are always trying to emote Vader too much.
So wait, when does this happen? I'm getting confused on the timeline.
After Empire Strikes Back.
It's after he cuts off Luke's hand.
Oh, right. This is what they talked about at New York Comic Con, right?
Yeah, that they were starting this Greg Pak.
Of a what if after Empire Strikes Back, we see that he's his dad.
Not a what if.
No, they presented it as that's what their thought process was when they were creating this. Is Greg Pak said, when you first saw Empire Strikes Back and you're like, is Darth Vader his father? Is he telling the truth? What does this mean? That's where they came from with this. Now I'm remembering. Okay, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just the affirmation that it is true. But this whole thing about how he finds out that, Padme does deliver the kids, and it takes him on this kind of goose chase to trace all these things, and he winds up. What does it say here? He traces surveillance devices back to its owner. That's what it is. And the owner should be impossible, but it's recognized to be Padme Amidala on some distant world, and he comes across her. And now it's got all these people saying that she survived and what's going on. You'll find out in the next issue. And I'm like, okay. There is, obviously, there's something more to it. It's a projection, or it's, a clone, or which would be even more ridiculous. It's not Padme Amidala is the bottom line. And for them to be like, wait till the next issue and you'll find out how Padme's alive is so it's so cheap. It's so bad. I'm sorry. Because at no point ever in the history of Star Wars comics are they ever going to do anything that major of a narrative shift that's tied to the films. It will never happen, and it drives me nuts that they try to sell it that way. It really bothers me. It just seems like it doesn't have a purpose. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, but I feel like I've been a little too positive on the podcast lately, so I need to unleash some of my fury here. I feel like we've had too many Darth Vader comics. I feel like they emote him way too much. And stuff like this, is Padme alive? I can't believe it. It's like the soap opera when the evil twin shows up and you're like, oh my God, you died last season, but we need to bring the actor back. So we're going to put them there and then we're going to tease them with the cliffhanger. I'm so over it. I'm so done. I try getting into the comics a little bit, but this stuff is just ridiculous. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Wow. Well, I disagree with all of that. I think the comic's great. I love that they picked up right there. As far as this being a spoiler, like, I know we set it up like it's a spoiler. It's not a spoiler at all, because it's so clearly not Padme that I don't think that it's an issue with anybody actually thinking that it's Padme. And I don't think the authors are intending it to be like, she's alive. So immediately you flip the page and you see that she's standing there and he says Padme, but it's clearly one of her doubles, like, still protecting. Like, he goes into her old room, and we've explored Sabe in Queen's Shadow, and we're getting ready to release Queen's Peril, which is going to continue that story. And
I'll pass on those too.
I think you're way off base saying that this is like what it is when it's clearly not. I think that the comics are doing exactly like how I take them, and you're taking them in a really weird way. You're saying that they're trying to, like, pull things over on people and stuff.
Not pull things over, but on a case-by-case basis, if someone read this comic in a vacuum, or and they saw that Padme came back, then they go telling people like, oh my God, can you believe that Padme was alive after The Empire Strikes Back? And not only that...
Nobody would think that.
Okay, but the problem with that is that there's YouTubers, there's bloggers, and people create articles about this saying Padme Amidala is alive during this time, Padme is alive during this time, and people believe it who are fringe fans, casual fans, and stuff like that, and then diehard fans have to tell them that that's wrong. It's just, there's no need for this story. It is completely irrelevant. It's completely made to sell comics, and that's all it is.
I see where John's coming from, and I think that this story is doing a little bit of like a bait and switch, because you know it's not going to be Padme. So for them to say, wait till next week, you'll see Padme, and then
that's
you're going to open the comic book and it's not going to be.
Did you guys read it?
Did I read it? No, I read the summary.
Or did you read
a
summary?
I read the summary of it.
Spoiler review.
That does not happen in the story. Like, you read it.
Where does it leave off? Where does it leave off?
It just leaves off with her, like, standing there.
And him saying what?
He says Padme. But there's no implication there's nothing here that you guys are. I know what you're doing. You're like twisting it, and that's not the case.
I'm not twisting it.
There's nothing supernatural about it. When you're reading it, there's nothing that makes you go, oh, she didn't die. Like, you would have to be dumb, in my opinion.
James, I got news for you. There's dumb people out there.
I know, but you can't say that the authors of the comic are trying to dig into that crowd and pull one over.
I'm not
just to get the dumb
that.
people to do these videos and believe it.
I said it could be viewed as that.
I'm saying the story.
I'm saying it kind of can't.
I'm saying these stories aren't necessary. They're made to sell and make money. And I believe that, and there's evidence to prove that. And also, I do think that it is a problem when people who do know better and know that that's not Padme still make articles about it to screw with fans' heads and start rumors and false information. YouTube channels running about Padme's back.
But that's not the creator's fault.
I'm not saying it is. But if
you are saying it is, though.
No, I'm saying
you're saying it's all dumb. It's stupid. They shouldn't be doing this. It's a useless story. It's just made to make money.
It is.
It shouldn't be happening. You're saying they shouldn't be doing it.
I'm not
too many
saying
Vader
it's
comics,
dumb.
in my opinion.
I'm not saying it's dumb. I guess my question is this story necessary?
Yes.
No,
I think it's cool.
And I'm not saying that it's not.
Cool is
I'm
one
just
thing.
saying my first question is it necessary? Because if I never heard the story of Vader looking for his son, I don't think it would change my Star Wars experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Vader looking for Luke is going to change my viewing experience of the original trilogy.
I
don't
don't mean to say
why they might want to tell this story.
I should backtrack. I don't mean to say it's dumb because they're cool. I agree. Your word saying it's cool, James, I agree. It's cool. It's not necessary at all. I guess I need to separate those two things. Like, I would prefer like the Afra thing where it's there, here's this new character and she's going on her adventures and doing this stuff, as opposed to this stuff where it's like, let's fill in the gaps between this and this, even though it's completely not necessary because we can. If your main reason is because you can, that's, to me, not a good enough reason.
It feels like
That's
they're
all.
wringing out the Darth Vader story cloth.
Quite a bit.
I mean,
but Darth Vader
I
is
don't know
popular.
how to come back from that. I mean, all that it is to me is I don't know what the story is, but they have this interesting idea of like, what if Darth Vader was encountered by one of her still alive lookalikes,
Sure.
like, and what adventures would ensue from that point on? And we don't know. We're gonna figure out how he treats someone who looks exactly and acts exactly like her, who holds her to the highest respect and is probably still on the mission to figure out who killed her. And it's Vader, but she doesn't know that. It's an interesting story. So how do you reveal that encounter? That's probably the best way to do it. She walks into the room, and you got to think that if that were to happen, if your wife died and someone who looks exactly like your wife walks into the room, you probably would go, hold on, what, like she's 20 years older too. You got to remember that too. So I don't even think, I don't know. It's crazy to me to think somebody would be like, oh, she must have lived. Like that's not conveyed in the comic.
That's not really what I'm saying, but I understand what your point there. And I'm not trying to dog on, love for comics at all. I'm just saying the Vader stuff, like they've made how many Vader #1s have there been at this point? Like, it's just like,
3.
It's crazy.
But here's the thing. I get it, but all 3 of those Vader comics have been great, like, so far.
Anything
the first
they do
Vader
with Darth Vader
series
is gonna
is
be
cherished.
great.
I know, but I'm saying that's part of the reason is that they have this complex character.
Yeah.
And they could
Complex
explore
character.
things with him that are intriguing and interesting, and people want to follow it, and they like to hear those things. They're telling those stories. They've told them from different periods.
I know.
But yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Like, every time they do a Vader, it's a banger. So why wouldn't they keep doing it?
I love that you said banger.
I don't know how to explain it. He's like, they shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, yes, they should.
It's like
if
asking
anything-
Ariana Grande not to make good music. She can't.
I get it that there are other series out there and other characters that could be doing that are also good too.
I think it's
I
because-
don't love every comic series,
James,
but
I've heard conversations and
I said
stuff like
5
that
to 10 minutes.
where it just sounds, it's a very it's such a strictly business thing, and I hate to be all jaded about it, but that's how they look at it. And they know that they can make money selling these books, and that's why they do them. It's not like, oh, this is the story we got to tell. It's like, was Vader alive during this time? What was the time jump between these 2 movies? Let's do another comic series. Who wants to write it? I will. Bang.
Yeah, I think that's true and false, because it's true that somebody probably in the pipeline is going, we make money on these things, we got to do them, they're dumb, but whatever, I'll hire somebody to do it. But the people that they hire are actively interested, I believe, in what the story that they're telling. But I'm telling you, it's not everybody just going over there like, I don't know, whatever, I'll just have him jump off this cliff and do 20 backflips. It's all stupid. The people who are hired to write the stories are like, yes, I'll do Vader. I have good ideas. I'm excited to explore the character.
No, you're right. I agree.
No more Vader comics. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. No, I mean, that same idea of what you're saying is while true, it's silly to think about because it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. The movies are that too. There's somebody out there that's like, I don't know, make another Star Wars movie, whatever, and they sign off on it and they do it. But the people like who are creating it care. You guys are disrespectful.
I'm
James,
not.
I was listening to what you were saying. John
You
just
do the Scoundrels rundown.
John just grabbed his Vader helmet and tossed it during mid your explanation. So I'm going, what is going on?
Well, because James is making it sound like I don't respect the writers. That's not it. I'm just saying it's like,
what don't you respect then? Because you clearly don't respect this thing.
We're gonna make Fast and Furious Part 11
I
because it
love
keeps
Fast
making
and
money.
Furious.
No,
No
people
judgment.
like the money, and there's a lot of people who care about what's going on.
I would not criticize the person who writes it because they'll probably be like, I want to do a good job because I have respect in my work. The studio being, we're just going to make Fast and Furious number 37 and Vin Diesel's 78 years old and we're still going to do it. That's how I feel about these Vader comics.
You know what?
That's all I'm saying.
If they bring back Han again from Tokyo Drift, I'm in, which they did. For this next one.
I feel like we need to
Bad example.
compartmentalize what my thoughts were on this. It's not about, I'm not saying they're doing a bad job writing. I'm saying it's an unnecessary story that will create these false theories and rumors and stuff that will confuse casual fans and cause more fan disrupt and stuff like that. When I ask the question, do we need the story or not? And I think no, but I completely understand your point of view. And I'm probably wrong. I'm in the minority. People are going to say John sucks in the comments, and that's okay. That is okay.
But at the same time, James, I totally agree with you that it's a double, and never does it say that it's like her ghost or anything. But for the people that haven't read Queen's Shadow, that haven't read these other books, someone like my husband Matt is going to go, so Padme's back? Because he doesn't understand that she has all these doubles that look just like her. Because the last time he saw a double, it got killed. She got killed. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're just trying to take it outside of the diehard Star Wars
Because I
fans.
think if Matt read it, he would be reading it and he'd go, but wait, that character died. So he'd be like, I don't know. They'll explain
be
it in
honest,
the
he
next
probably
one.
doesn't
But
even-
she's clearly not a ghost. She's clearly not still alive.
Well, this is how you find out if it's Padme.
The end of the comic is not a reveal that she's been hiding away this whole time.
The only way you know whether it's Padme or not when Vader shows up is if she starts trying to break up with him when she first sees him. That's how you find out. And that's all I've got to say about that.
To be honest, it was probably a bad example because Matt would be like, is that Darth Maul? And I'd be like, no, it's not Darth Maul.
James, you don't get my point of view, right? And I apologize.
I just think you guys have a bad point of view on the comics.
Okay, wait,
Like in those
hold
stories.
hold on. I never said anything about it being dumb. I said, me personally, it doesn't add to my journey of watching the movies.
I retracted my dumb statement.
Don't loop me in with this shenanigan over here.
I just said the story's not necessary
throwing masks.
to make money.
Anyway, John's
Okay.
a scoundrel,
Scoundrels.
and we're going to head into a Scoundrels rundown. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, punch it!
Punch it.
All right. You heard John shout out the Patreon generals at the top of the show. And if you want to learn more about Patreon, what it is, what we do, and what is offered, you can check out our 3-minute video appropriately titled, by me, Join the Resistance, all the details of TRB's Patreon page on our YouTube channel. So it's a video I put together with everything breaking down all the tiers, what you get, what cool things can happen in your life when you join our Patreon page on our YouTube page. And it's my
I'm gonna
face.
start doing comic reviews too on there.
John, just really driving
just
it home.
kidding.
Oh
I'm
my
just
goodness. Speaking of somewhat driving, we're driving a contest right now, or running one. On our Twitter page.
It's a little
called
wordy.
Hashtag, I'm just trying to keep it going. Hashtag
Little wordy.
rate the resistance. And you can rate it saying Lacey's segues are terrible. Whatever you want. For Apple Podcast users. One winner will win a TRB t-shirt of your choice. And we're going to announce the winner on March 1st. So how you do it, 3 steps. 1, you rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts. 2, you take a screenshot. 3, you tweet to us that screenshot with to us at RVATSWNN with hashtag rate the resistance. It helps us, spreads the word, helps us rank. And also we just I really enjoy getting feedback. So if you guys want to do that, you could win a t-shirt. Speaking of t-shirts, guys.
What a segue.
I just read it off the paper. I didn't come up with that myself. Ray is
all the Jedi, but now you can be too. We have a brand new t-shirt that we are really proud of that James made and designed called I Am All the Jedi. And it is a two-sided shirt with the phrase on the front and a silhouette of Rey on the back made up of a starry sky representing her connecting with all the Jedi at the end of the Rise of Skywalker. Taking a breath. Check out the design and other designs like Make Solo 2 Happen at tpublic.com/user/resistance broadcast. They're super cool, so check it out. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to go to John with some cool questions. So Chewie, get us out of here.
There he is back there. He didn't get hit by the helmet.
I thought you were going to hit him.
Ask the Resistance time.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
You guys can obviously send in your questions. We usually put out a tweet asking for them on Twitter. That's where you tweet at RBATSWNN, or you can email them to us at resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. Or if you're a patron, you can shoot them via message or on the community page. Or even we use some questions we don't use for Will of the Force here as well. So however you want to guess a question, go for it. And these folks did. Lacey, this one's going to you.
Sweet dog.
This is from Vlasic, which is at Matthew Vlasic. So way to get your handle, Matthew.
Hey, Matthew.
He asked, we live in a time where studios are listening to the fans' feedback more. Hopefully not mine. From Star Wars to Sonic to Doctor Who, do you think this is healthy and the right way to approach franchises? Is there a right or wrong way when you do listen to it to tell a narrative? Sorry.
Okay. Matthew, this is a great question, and it's something that I myself have been pondering over the past few years. It's a tricky place when you want to give the customers what they want and you want to make money and you want to do a good job, but it's like how much listening to your demographic and target audience is too much listening. You know what I mean? Like how much is too much? So the Sonic thing, I kind of agree with that they took time to listen to fans because that thing was atrocious and looked nothing like the video game, which honestly, Sonic 2 the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis is my first video game I ever really got into. So for that design, it was something that due to the bad press and how crazy it went over it, they had to listen. They couldn't not listen because of the reaction it got. But at the same time, you know, something like The Last Jedi, when Rian Johnson openly said numerous times that when you're a filmmaker, you have to make a movie for yourself and not for fans. And I somewhat agree with that. But then there are other times that it doesn't make sense. So that's why, like, as I'm talking through this to you, Matthew, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. Because you can end up with something too fan servicey where it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm pretty sure if they took feedback from all fans and made a Star Wars movie, it would be the worst movie I've ever seen. And that's with my own input. I'm sure my own ideas are terrible because I'm not a professional. So I think there's a fine line of listening to fans, but then it comes down to like which fans are they listening to? Because sometimes the loudest aren't the majority. So it's weird. It's one of those weird things that you just got to be careful. And I'm interested to see how it goes moving forward. Because things like Sonic, which a lot of experts and critics specified when they decided to make changes, is that they set the pace that now people are going to assume that they should always make changes. So I don't know, man. That's tough. I don't think they should listen to fans, but that's just me.
All right.
But at the same time, studio executives are making bad decisions because I heard from an inside source about Sonic that people told them it looked terrible. And a studio executive was like, no, make it look more human. It would make more sense. It's going to connect more. And then we got what we got. So maybe they need a little kind of slap in the face, so to speak.
You got those Sonic sources.
I do. Sonic sources. It's the only source I have. Let me have it.
They're putting a Sonic up in New Milford. Everyone's really excited up here.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one in Wallingford.
You have to get off 12 and you can find it.
You know what? Sonic is super greasy, though.
It is kind of greasy.
And their water tastes like chlorine.
Speaking of chlorine, this next question is going to James. Is a nonsensical segue, right? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, James, this is from the Bookish Rebel at the Bookish Rebel, but it's not their name, so it's not really written handle, I guess.
Yeah.
But James, do you think Ben Solo is stuck in the world between worlds, and that's why his Force ghost wasn't shown at the end of The Rise of Skywalker? Or do you feel that his ghost wasn't able to appear because he gave his entire life force for Rey to live?
Right now, that whole segment is very open to fan interpretation. We don't have an answer, and I know that's why you're asking me what my personal opinion is. I can tell you that for the first part of the question, do I think it's stuck in the world between worlds? That's why he wasn't shown at the end. I don't. I think World Between Worlds is something completely different. I don't know that it necessarily has anything to do with where the entity or the spirit of a person goes. But I think the second part of your question is probably not the correct answer, but is closer. That his ghost wasn't able to appear because he gave his life, his force, to Rey specifically. So maybe there's some sort of possibility, because we haven't really ever seen this happen before. So they could write it to be whatever they want. And going with that option of his Force ghost is in Rey, is sort of might be what they want to do. It just depends on the next person who wants to tell that story. But I actually believe that the reason, and this is kind of a boring practical reason, there's a reason he didn't show up at the end, and I think it's because they wanted to show Luke and Leia, and that's it. I just think he would be like third wheel or fifth wheel, or whichever you want to say. Mm-hmm. I know that it could bring a lot of closure to a lot of fans, but I don't think they wanted fans looking at Kylo Ren or Ben Solo and not paying attention to the other two. I think he would just pull away from what they were trying to do with that scene. So that's why he's not there, to be honest with you.
I always thought it might be cool if Luke and Leia kind of parted and then looked back, and then Ben Solo stepped up, so that they get their moment, and then Ben was there, and it was a very definitive, this is the end. So, like Return of the Jedi, where he shows up after Ben Kenobi and Yoda, right? Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
A definitive.
Because I feel like we need a clear cut, like, this is what happened.
Yeah, James, you're taking the World Between Worlds thing. A lot of people are going with that one, but that's more of a portal as opposed to a purgatory, as I understood it, based on how Ahsoka was pulled through, and Ezra was able to look at his parents and stuff. And
the World Between Worlds is a conduit through which the Force moves through. I think the best way to explain it is this is a place where it's like a fifth dimensional time and space bend. You can walk from, I don't know if anybody knows the analogy, like the paper and the Flatlanders, and you can bend it in the third dimension and it appears from one side to the other. It's getting really complex. I don't want to talk about that stuff, but I think that's kind of Star Wars-y animation version of them just saying, hey, there's some weird beyond time and space. Rey exists here at the same time that Padme exists here, so nothing really makes any sense. And again, I think you're right, I don't think it necessarily is something that is more like the cosmic force. I think it's more of bending of time and space in our present existence.
You're right. Yeah.
I don't want to get too into that.
It's yeah. It's again another tricky thing. All right. Good answer though, and good question. All right. Last one by Tony Rossi at Tony Rossi Media. I could be wrong, but I think Tony just signed up on Patreon.
He did. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony. All right.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us, man. All All right. Tony said, though I enjoyed The Last Jedi, I hated that Luke Skywalker got killed off. I think that's fair. I think a lot of people did too. Do you know if that was Rian Johnson's idea and Lucasfilm Disney just went along with it? Or was it always the plan to kill off each of the original human characters in each sequel? All right. So I did like digging on this based on like interviews that Rian Johnson gave and testimonials. And unless he was not telling the truth, it was his decision. And he said he danced kind of back and forth with, like we just said, the finality of showing that he died. He almost wanted to leave it a little questionable, but then he made sure he had him fade away with the Force, and that was his ultimate final decision. So as far as I understand it, and the historical records show, it was Rian Johnson's decision to have Luke die there. And I think the reasoning behind it for him was that he couldn't imagine Luke going out in a more heroic way than saving all the people he loved by doing something that we've never seen happen by a Jedi, like the most Force strength powers possible by projecting himself there and facing down the First Order, not in the way that he joked about him doing earlier in the movie, but in that way that he wound up doing at the end there. So, Rian Johnson's call there. They went along with it, but that was it wasn't like he pulled the wool over their eyes. Now, do I think Mark Hamill liked that? No, I do not. But it's not his character, just like it's not ours. So, that was Ryan's call there, and that's that. But thanks for the question, Tony. Did you guys have any thoughts on that? Do you agree with that? That's how I took it based on Johnson's.
Yes, Tony, I agree. I didn't like that he died.
Oh, but I mean that it was Ryan's call. Like,
it was definitely right. He stood by it. The whole press.
That's
circuit.
right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I wasn't saying that incorrectly.
And that was like one of the things that led into the discussion, which leads back to my question at the beginning of this was him standing by, like, you can't make decisions based on what fans want. You have to make sometimes the difficult decisions. That was one of the things he was referencing is the death of Luke Skywalker.
But you know what's not a difficult decision is whether or not you want to send questions to us. So like I said before, send them over to Twitter at RBATSWNN, our email, or on Patreon. We'll get you on the show. We'll talk about your handle and have a good time with those. So we hope you guys enjoy those and keep them coming. And if you're tweeting, always use hashtag AskTheResistance because it helps us find them easier. So thank you for those. But that brings us towards the end of the show. So first, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who is listening and watching every week, or whether you're new to us. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts. Remember the Rate the Resistance contest Lacey talked about before, so do that.
We're driving that over on Twitter.
Driving it over right off exit 12. Rate us on Apple Podcasts. Take a screenshot, tweet to us, hashtag Rate the Resistance, and you'll be entered to win one of our t-shirts. Make sure you are going to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for your latest Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Subscribe wherever you hear us or wherever you watch us. If you're on YouTube, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us there. We mentioned our Patreon generals before at the top of the show. Thank you again, guys. Again, the merch Lacey talked about before. And just if you want to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Our tiers start at $2 a month for page access. We just started adding new stuff to the Patreon page in addition to what we're already doing. We're going to be giving kind of a behind-the-scenes look at us planning the shows, recording before, recording after, kind of our mindsets and what's going on with us there. And
how
also,
dumb Lacey is.
Lacey's going to be doing gaming nights for Battlefront on PS4. So starting on the 11th, which is tomorrow. Yeah, so tomorrow night. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and at Star Wars Newsnet. James?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Myra Trunks.
Nice. Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran. I'm nervous about these behind the scenes clips because I am dumb.
I'm nervous about the comments about my take on the comics, frankly. But guys, Thursday we're going to be doing a little fun with a Kessel Run. Talking about our 12 favorite moments, our favorite scenes from the sequel trilogy. So put your thinking caps on and come up with your list so then you can compare yours with ours. But until then, enjoy your weeks. Keep loving Star Wars, and we'll see you next time on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.
Bye.